So when we think about what's at stake in this election, whoa, it's packed with some stuff. It's packed with some fundamental stuff.
Kamala Harris had an eventful week, filled with campaigns and controversies. In this video, we'll discuss how disastrous the week has been for Kamala Harris.
He is someone who will stop at nothing to claim power for himself. And you don't have to take my word for it. I've said for a while now, watch his rallies. Listen to his words. He tells us who he is. And he tells us what he would do if he is elected president.
In her campaign, she faced criticism for focusing more on attacking Donald Trump than addressing the pressing issues she would face as president, instead of laying out clear plans to tackle major challenges like healthcare reform, the economy, climate change, war, immigration. She just seems to have concentrated much of her energy on criticizing Trump's presidency. During speeches or interviews, her focus has often shifted towards his past failures and controversial policies rather than offering solutions. People feel like this approach is leaving them in the dark about her vision for the country. What exactly is she going to do differently? How would she handle the economy or reform the healthcare system? These questions have remained unanswered, which has raised concerns about whether she's prepared to lead or simply use her opposition to Trump as the backbone of her campaign. While calling out Trump might help certain parts of the base, there's growing frustration from others who want to hear more about how she would address the real challenges the country faces today. Without these, she risks losing voters who are looking for more than just anti-Trump statements.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
She recently had an interview on 60 Minutes. The interview was important for her campaign because it gave her a chance to share her vision for the future of the country. However, it led to some serious backlash, especially from former President Donald Trump and his supporters. During the interview, two different versions of her answer to the same question were published, leading to accusations that CBS edited her words. Trump chose not to take part in the CBS interview, and many think his decision was influenced by how the network edited Harris's comments. Trump and his supporters argue that CBS often edits interviews to make guests from the Democratic Party look good. This has led to further claims that the media is biased against him and the other Republicans. Her team is now facing tough questions about the honesty of the interview and whether it accurately showed her views on certain matters. This situation is harmful to her campaign, with the election drawing near. Citizens, including Trump, are now demanding to see the unedited version of the interview, claiming that no political interviews should be edited at all.
I'm telling you, she is so bad. Did you see 60 Minutes? So I've done 60 Minutes many times. I even had the great Mike Wallace there, who was actually a great one. Mike Wallace, the toughest of them all. He gave me a great one. But she was interviewed. Her answers were so bad that they put other answers in.
After the interview aired, Donald Trump, in his campaign, claimed that Kamala wasn't being truthful and that the program was just trying to protect her, which a lot of people, especially his supporters, are in agreement with.
They don't do that for me. You know, we're just the opposite. Her answers, they take it away and put new answers in. My answers, they just cut them up so that instead of 4 sentences that are perfect, it's 1 sentence that proceeds back, and all of a sudden, I used to say to him, why did you cut the hell out of my paragraph?
Trump emphasized how important it is for political interviews to remain truthful. He believes that editing can affect the truth and mislead voters, which questions the integrity of media outlets. Many viewers also feel that political interviews should be transparent, allowing voters to see the full context of the candidates' responses.
Think of it. Her answers were terrible because she's only, I say it very respectfully, she's not a smart person. And we've had 4 years of that, and we can't have another 4 years.
He believes her answers were poor, suggesting that she lacked intelligence. Trump implies that having Kamala in office would mean repeating the mistakes of the past 4 years, which he sees as inadequate leadership. He emphasizes the need for change, saying that the country cannot afford another 4 years of what he considers to be ineffective governance. In the edited or unedited interview, she had quite the issue answering the questions that the interviewer asked. Her 60 Minutes interview focused on her job as vice president and her ideas for the future of the country. She was asked about important topics like healthcare, the economy, and climate change, and this interview was supposed to be an opportunity for her to explain her plans if she were to become president. However, some viewers felt that her answers were unclear or not direct enough.
I've been covering the border for years, and so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years.
Criticizing her appearance on The View, they questioned the show's bias, claiming that she was asked softball questions that didn't challenge her enough. Some political commentators have also pointed out that during her time as vice president, many of the key issues she wanted to tackle have not been effectively addressed.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
During her time on the show, she was asked if she would have done anything differently from President Biden in the past 4 years. She said she couldn't think of anything she would change. This suggests that she feels confident in the decisions made during Biden's time in office. However, her answer left some people wondering about her views on the administration's choices. It could raise questions about her influence as vice president and whether she agrees with Biden's approach. There was also the case, because of course there was, of taxpayer funding for sex change surgeries.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Vice President Kamala Harris has made it a priority to ensure that transgender inmates get the medical care they need. She worked on a case that not only provided necessary services for transgender women, but also led to a policy change in California, allowing all transgender inmates to access this medical care. Citizens didn't find using taxpayers' money for these surgeries appropriate. Many believed that while personal freedom is important, individuals should pay for elective medical procedures themselves, especially if they are serving time for crimes. The idea that prisoners should receive expensive gender transition surgeries is seen as an extreme liberal policy, which does not sit well with the general public. Another concern is the safety of housing biologically male inmates in women's prisons, particularly when some have committed violent crimes. Most Americans find this troubling, which could also be a weakness for the Democratic Party. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, has also taken a shot at Kamala.
Remember, Kamala Harris's entire campaign is to pretend that she hasn't been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. You know, she stands up before crowds and she'll say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. On day one, we're going to secure the border. And you listen to her for 5 minutes and you think, Kamala, are you going to vote for Donald Trump because you've been vice president for 1,400 days, you haven't done anything?
He stated that her campaign acted like she wasn't in power. As vice president, she has had a front row seat to the policies and decisions made during the Biden administration, not to mention being a tiebreaker vote for numerous occasions. Yet, in her speeches and public appearances, she often positions herself as an outsider looking to fix problems that have been ongoing for years, rather than someone who is actively involved in administration's initiatives. Vance sees it from this perspective, that if she genuinely believed in these issues, she should have been more proactive during her time in office. Instead, her campaign often feels like an attempt to distance herself from the actions taken during the Biden administration, which many voters might view as not taking accountability. Voters expect political leaders to take ownership of their decisions and the consequences of those decisions. This can create a perception that she is not genuinely invested in the issues at hand. Instead of presenting a clear vision based on her experience as vice president, her statements often show a desire to change her image rather than embrace her current role.
I saw today, actually, a story that Kamala Harris apparently copied some significant chunks of her book from Wikipedia.
He also talked about plagiarism in her book, Smart on Crime, which was published in 2009. This claim has led to a lot of discussions about her honesty as a writer and as a leader. The idea that she copied large sections of her book from Wikipedia without giving credit raises serious concerns about her attention to detail and whether she values original ideas.
Plagiarism expert has gone through Harris's book on justice and found whole slabs were plagiarized from Wikipedia or copied word for word from things like some organization's press release. But this expert says even worse is how she copied Martin Luther King.
An expert examined her book on justice and discovered that parts of it were lifted directly from sources like Wikipedia. This raises major concerns about her integrity as a writer and public figure. The more concerning allegation is the claim that she plagiarized passages from Martin Luther King Jr. In a famous 1965 interview, he talked about how a little girl, lost at a civil rights rally, told a police officer that she wanted freedom. Kamala appeared in an interview with Elle magazine where she claimed that, as a child, her mother asked her what she wanted, and she responded with the same word, freedom. I mean, when I was a child, I wanted Sonic the Hedgehog, but people see this as not an issue of policy, but also a serious breach of authenticity, suggesting that she is fabricating experiences instead of sharing her genuine memories. While all of these were happening, one of the members of the Democratic Party, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, is facing criticism for a Doritos video that many feels mocks Holy Communion. In a recent Instagram post, Whitmer appeared alongside a feminist influencer in what was intended to be a lighthearted attempt to encourage voting. They believe Whitmer's video doesn't address important issues affecting women, especially debates about abortion and reproductive rights. Feminists feel like the Democratic Party has not done enough to focus on these key topics, and videos like Whitmer's only widens the gap between the party and its supporters. People express their disgust, stating that the video is offensive and doesn't reflect the views in Michigan. They emphasize that if someone truly identifies as a feminist, they wouldn't support a party that seemingly ignores important issues affecting women, such as the abortion debate. The timing of these accusations is critical, coming just weeks before the election. With the stakes this high, voters are paying close attention to the candidate's credibility. Her inability to defend her record during interviews only affects her campaign in the most negative way. The polls have also shown that Kamala Harris has fallen behind Trump.
New polling numbers in 7 swing states. They show a very tight race between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. The numbers coming in from Emerson College and The Hill.
The polling numbers from 7 important swing states show a very close race between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. The data also shows that Kamala's campaign is struggling to gain support, especially as she deals with ongoing controversies. Her current approach may not resonate with voters who are looking for genuine leadership and plans for the future. Many people want to hear more about her ideas for tackling urgent issues like healthcare and the economy. Given these challenges, she needs to change her campaign strategy. She must find a way to criticize Trump while presenting her policies. Voters want a candidate who not only sees the problems facing the country, but offers real solutions. Without this, she risks losing ground to Trump and his supporters, who are skilled at exploiting any weaknesses in her campaign. As the election approaches, Kamala needs to rebuild voters' trust and confidence. She must tackle the controversies directly, clarify her stance on key issues, and offer a strong vision for her presidency. The stakes are high, as she said, and her campaign's future relies on her ability to handle these challenges effectively. Her week has been filled with controversies and criticisms that have impacted her public image and raised doubts about her leadership skills. As she faces intense criticism from both opponents and supporters, she needs to adjust her campaign strategy and connect with voters on the issues that matter most. Whether she can turn things around remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. The coming weeks will be important for her and her team as they work to gain back their confidence in the competitive political landscape.